So I figured that I was financially illiterate because I invested based on companies' popularity, trend, and things like that. And then that is not what investment is all about. So I discovered that I needed to start to invest in education first, which is
Hello, welcome to the Nigerian Investors Podcast, the unofficial podcast that tracks and reports on the activities of the Nigerian boss. My name is Mudi, and with my colleague Aye, we will be hosting this podcast. TNI Podcast is dedicated to stimulating a renewed enthusiasm among the general population with regard to the activities of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Ultimately, the goal of TNI is to see that many Nigerians from all walks of life, both at home and in the diasporas, become active participants on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Before we go further, we would like to place on record TNI Podcast is solely for educational purposes and not a replacement for professional financial advice. Let's begin. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nigerian Investor Podcast, the show where we decode the markets, break down the jargon, and serve you your money gist with a sprinkle of suya spice. Now, today's guest, you better tighten your seatbelt because this one is not your regular money tweeter. He is a certified project management professional, a value investor, a real estate enthusiast, and an equity strategist, and a tennis fan who probably thinks stocks, charts are more fun than Wimbledon finance. He is the kind of guy who can break down any company's earnings report while sipping Zobo and still have enough energy left to tweet context-rich investment takes that will make you rethink your portfolio all before lunch. You may know him online as Adu Oluwatope, but to those who follow his investing insight religiously, he is the sensei of contents, the oracle of Twitter threads. The content is King Maestro himself. Ladies and gentlemen, grab your pens, your notepads, and maybe a smoothie from HM's Mudi because you are about to learn, laugh, and possibly regret not following him sooner. Welcome to the podcast, Tope.
great having me on the podcast, the Nigerian Investors Podcast.
Yes, you're welcome, sir.
So I'm not the regular Twitter person. I started to probably respond recently, and then I think a few of my tweets got people's attention, and I started to have different requests to actually even speak on podcasts. But anyway, I accepted to speak on you guys' podcast. So we can get started.
It's a great honor. Thank you. So let's get started from the roots. How did you go from IT and project management to becoming um, one of Nigeria's favorite content-driven investor on Twitter?
So I study computer science, and all my life, everything I have done revolves around IT until I met my mentor, and then he introduced me years ago. That should be around 2008 or thereabout, to the stock market. And in between that period, I I was working with an IT research software development arm.
Okay.
At the time I joined them, they developed the enhanced payroll and pension management software for Nigerian Railway Corporation. I joined them as a supervisor to that project, and it was a big project at the time. And there was someone I met, a very invaluable person into my career development as well, that actually advised me to get the project management certification that it was going to help my career then. And then I registered for effective project management class, that's CPMS, Comprehensive Project Management Limited, owned by Engineer Bayo Adiola. because the woman kept telling me at the time that her boss was going to teach me and I would enjoy his classes and stuff. So I registered for effective project management class. One of the finest project managers in the country is actually Engineer Bayo Adeola. So I dug up his profile, and he was even the president of FIDIC then, Federation for International Development, something. Anyway, I registered, and from there I picked interest in project management, and then I went on to do the PMP class, and then I went on to do the exam after. And since then, I've been a global credential holder since that time. That should be about 14 years ago now. And then my interest in the stock market began in 2010. Even though I had bought into some public offers like FirstBank, Japol, Costain, a few of them. And at the time I met my mentor, we just talk about these things. And then he asked me, "What are you doing now? What have you bought recently?" I'll tell him. And then in 2010, I realized he started to tell me that the volumes of what I had then would not cut it, that I really need to go in hard in the market. And then I started to research the market because 2008 I had lost money. The market crashed. A lot of what we bought, what we were asked to buy, a lot of the public offers flying around then had risen over 3, 4, 500%. And the share certificate was just there. We couldn't dematerialize, because there was little information available in the market at the time. So we just held on to it. And then when the share, price started to fall in 2008, everybody started to rush to dematerialize. And then these processes were slow. For instance, Costain, declined for all the way from all-time high of 85 naira to 5 naira, and then you still had your share certificate with you and all that. Anyway, to cut the story short, that didn't stop me. I wanted to find out who actually lost money in the market. So I figured that I was financially illiterate because I invested based on companies' popularity, trend, and things like that. And then that is not what investment is all about. So I discovered that I needed to start to invest in education first, which is you learning how to read financial statement, you know, constantly reading about great people that have actually done well in the market, what kind of books, they read and stuff. So that really got to me. And fast forward to 2014, 13, 14, I figure that my investment at the time, my dividend could afford me to fly to the United States to take project management MBA with the Project Management Institute. I did all of that with my dividend, to pay for this course. So at that time, I figured the importance of having to invest, and then having to invest is actually good and valuable companies that can really pay you good dividends over time. And from there, fast forward again to 2021, no, 2018, I bought my first real estate landed property in the GRA, and I left it because at the time I wasn't really a real estate savvy person. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a friend introduced me to real estate in 2015. He kept telling me about real estate because I showed him my portfolio. We were sitting at the bar, and then I showed him my portfolio, and the guy was shocked. He was like, if you have this kind of money, you should be in real estate. I was like, I really didn't know how to go about it. And then I just did not understand what real estate was really about. So he told me my money was fake, that this thing is just on paper, and then anything can happen. I can lose it. I should take it out. So the guy was just on me. And then eventually I listened to him. I pulled out in 2018. I pulled out about 50% of my portfolio to get a landed property. And then I left the land, and then the guy kept telling me again that I needed to sign up with somebody to do a JV if I wasn't ready to build and all that. So he brought a company, and then I signed up with them for them to do the construction, and then we split on equity based. Like my land was my equity, and then they are going to construct, and then I think the sharing ratio was 50-50. So I signed the contract in 2021, and they moved to site shortly after the time. But I realized after 6 months that they were still at the foundation. And then the kind of contract I signed had a milestone. So
Okay.
I went back to check the milestone and I figured that these guys, you told me you were going to be at the first floor by 3 months or 4 months' time. And so I kept sending them letters, like trying to cite the contract portions, like they were violating, and they didn't probably take me serious. And so I reached out to a lawyer to evaluate the contract I signed because I was also a rookie at the time in real estate. I mean, I really didn't have the kind of knowledge I have in the stock market. And then so the guy said the option for me was to terminate the contract because they've actually violated several sections of the joint venture agreement we signed. So I told him to proceed and then I engaged him fully. Anyway, we got the contract terminated in 2022 and I regained the possession of my land. And but in between that time, I decided to study again that real estate shouldn't be a rocket science. I mean, why did they fail? And then I took it upon myself to get a couple of materials on real estate. There's this material I got, a real estate investment college. It's about 24 CDs, will take you through a real estate process from beginning to the end. And even at I mean, that was more theoretical though. But then I had good friends around me. I mean, I have a couple of friends in real estate at the time. So I kept speaking to them for advice. Okay, what do I do now? I just terminated. So another friend introduced me to another friend that had a property and then they wanted to do a JV. And then I made myself available that, okay, I would do this, even though I had no construction experience and all that. So I assembled a team. I had a consultant, I had I'm a project person. I assembled a team and then I signed the JV. And then I took the JV thing I signed to the bank. Then I took a loan in 2022 because it was actually a very big project to build a four fully detached building. And then that was my first project. Anyway, I took my documents and everything to the bank. I sat with the mortgage bank. They evaluated it, evaluated my asset. I submitted my stock asset portfolio and things like that. Anyway, I got the loan approved. And then I had my first real estate project in 20. Actually, the project actually commenced in 2023, even though I took a loan in November 2022. So the project, took off in 2023. And then uh, I finished the project in 2024 April. So I spent 10 months building 4, 5 fully detached. And in the process, because I'm actually a very meticulous person, I personally project manage the project myself. And I had a lot of people coming to the site. They like it. They like what I'm doing. They like my approach. They ask me all kind of questions. And then I discovered that over 35 people were interested in buying my buildings. And then I just had 4 buildings at the time. So that created the interest in real estate for me. I'm currently working on my second project in the GRA to build 5 units, three, two fully detached, and then 3 terraces at the moment. So that's where my love for real estate started.
Interesting. That's very interesting. You've had quite a journey since 2008, talking about costing.
I don't know. Don't go started.
Some people are not going to be happy hearing this because they cost some people a lot of money. And then you also mentioned First Bank. I
Yeah.
remember when First Bank IPO came out, it was around in the 20s, like 20 naira, 20 something naira. And if you look at First Bank right now, it's still in the 20s.
It's crazy, which is why
Yeah.
knowledge
So,
is very important in this market. I bought First
it,
Bank public offer at 33 now. A
oh,
friend
really?
called me. Yeah, I had a friend in First Bank. I knew nothing about shares. And then he called me and said that First Bank was offering their shares that I should buy. But because I respect a lot of my friends, I'm also fortunate to have actually had, I surround myself with good friends. So my friend was actually in IT risk audit of First Bank at the time, very smart guy. He said they would do well. I said, okay, how much do I put? It was like I give as much as I could afford. But then I didn't understand this thing. So I bought 2,000 units, just 66,000, you know. But then the share price actually went up. But the same thing happened because we had the paper with us, and we didn't know. I mean, no, I wasn't the only one. So a lot of us, we didn't know what to do with it. Do you get? So not until someone, again, my mentor, when I met my mentor, I said, "This is what I already bought, before." And then the guy was like, take it to your broker, let them dematerialize it for you. I didn't know that process. Do you get? So at the time my papers were ready to be dematerialized, all the shares I bought, they already dropped drastically. So which points to you having knowledge first before you invest. I don't know if I'm
Very
making sense.
important. Very important. That
So
is
people
where
get
this podcast
so
comes in.
get discouraged. Once you have knowledge, you have nothing to worry about.
That's very important. I couldn't quite agree with what you just said. That is where this podcast comes in. That is where you also come in, because there is a knowledge gap when it comes to financial education out there in the public. Most people, or would I say, most financial analysts, they tend to focus on the HNI or VHNI, very high net worth individuals, and neglecting
You
the
won't, you won't
populace.
blame them because that's where they make their money from.
Yes, I understand. It's business, so I understand. And if you look at the level of misinformation in the public domain, you will be alarmed. I can tell you of that. Just some few months ago, I was on Twitter. Recently, Twitter has been, I think, because the market has been very bullish. A lot of players like you have been coming on Twitter trying to educate the public. So there is a little, I feel like there's a wave, there's a new wave coming in about financial education, about the stock market in Nigeria, the capital market in general. So things are currently looking bright. But some few months ago, I saw a tweet, and I've related this in a previous episode. So somebody was asking, he had a certain amount of money. He was asking for advice on Twitter where he should invest the money into in order for him to make some profit. A lot of the suggestions he was getting were not about the stock market. See, I was just scrolling, trying to see if anybody would mention the stock market, and I just saw somebody that mentioned about the stock market and said, go buy Zenith Bank's shares. I think they are about to pay dividend as soon as April
Oh, okay.
2025. And
Yeah,
that's where the
those.
yeah, so that's where the journey started. Like for me, and I just opened the responses to that guy's comments. All were negative. Some were saying Jimovia is going to eat your money if you invest in the stock market. The stock market is a scam. My dad bought shares in 2008 and he lost his money. We can't even get the money back. This happened to my mom. This happened to my siblings. This happened to my friend that I know. So many negative responses. There was
Oh,
nothing positive. And that is when it dawned on me that, like, there is a huge gap here. People are so misinformed. And generally, we as humans, we like bad news more than good news. You can be
absolutely.
saying something positive all the time. People will not even care to pay attention. But just release something on social media about maybe one of the popular celebrities having an affair with somebody else, and that's going to be the news for the next couple of days.
Let me help you there. Let me help you there.
Yeah.
You see, that is why um it unfortunately more Nigerians will be poorer. You know why? Because people spend time on things that does not bring value, or that doesn't really add value to their life. People stay consuming negative news. But you see, I a choice years ago, to consume positive news. So even in my house, I would stay on Bloomberg channel for hours. I would stay on CNBC for hours. So I would not really know what is happening in that space because I choose what I consume. If you consume positive things, naturally your life will attract positive things.
Good.
If you consume negative things or negative news, naturally your life will attract negative things. So, and then a lot of our parents or the earlier guys in the market that had invested and lost a lot of money. They did not actually try to find out why they lost money. They gave up,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then they started to report bad things about the market. And then they tell you, no, don't go there. No, which is why you hear people talk about Jimovia. I mean, Jimovia is, to me, is a big god in Nigeria. I mean, because uh, a lot
He
of people,
created wealth for people. He created an opportunity for people
the
to be
god,
wealthy.
you see, Zenith Bank, we all knew Zenith Bank way back. Look at where they are today. I mean, this guy has left the bank, is no longer the MD. The bank is still running. So, I mean, when people again can't actually attain what you probably achieve in life, instead of them to go and learn, then they start to report negative things about you. What will a gym do with how much do you have? Do you want to invest in Zenny Bank or put in Zenny Bank that will move somebody like that? This is somebody that, without lifting a finger, go and check how many units of Zenith Bank shares he's holding and multiply by the annual dividend they pay. That will tell you the kind of person he is. So a lot of misinformation, has has traveled beyond the good ones. And then a lot of people invested in the banking stock during the margin loan era, and people lost money. A lot of what our parents invested in at the time, or our uncles, or I mean, they were overvalued. And then, which is why somebody like me, and then fortunate to have the kind of mentor I have. My mentor, taught me a whole lot how to go through financial statement, how to make investment decision, what to buy, how to analyze risk, and things like that. But a lot of people who put money in this market, they just want a quick fix. So they're not ready to burn, the candles, to actually, stay night hours to read about the company you want to put your money in. So that at least you're sure when the company share price is going up, why it's going up. And then when the share price is, falling, why the share price is falling. If you don't understand these things, you won't be able to make decisions.
And that's the problem right now because the market is buzzing and a lot of new entrants are coming in without the necessary education.
People
And if they
follow.
don't get this education, if the market tanks, maybe temporarily or something happens, because there will always be a bearish period, there will always
Definitely,
be a
anything that
bullish
goes
period.
up or down. I
And
mean,
so
you go up again. So
if
you're
it
right.
happens, most people are going to have their fingers burnt. And once it gets burnt, that is what will be trending. We said it.
Exactly.
The stock market is a scam. Look at what happened now. I just invested, and this is what is going on with my investment. And it's going to be another huge shock. So, focusing on education is very important. That's what you said. And you're not the only one that has been saying that. Educate yourself first. The reason
Because
why,
keeping your money,
yeah,
you
the
need to
reason
understand
why,
what you're doing. If you want to go to the market, sorry to cut in here.
no,
Let me
no
use
worries.
analogy. Now, if you want to go to the market, the stock market is the same as the food market. Just let's take a food market. You want to go there, you want to buy the finest tomato, you want to look for the freshest, you want to look for the cleanest. You have to take your time to search. You hold it, you check it, you turn it. It's the same way. You have to flip, you have to go through the financials. You have to check. I mean, somebody like me, I am more interested in statement of financial position of a company than your profit and loss account or your income statement, because I want to see what this company had done in the past, how you've been able to manage your debt, how you've been able to retain your earnings. What have you done? Then what are you planning to do next? We see figures, but people like us, these figures, they speak to us. But you need to take your time to go into the accounting explanatory notes to go and check these things there. They are written there, but a lot of people who put money in the market, people want you want to buy today. It's also possible. Then you want 30-40% appreciation, and then you want to get out. That's not investment. For me, when I'm researching a company I want to put my money in, sometimes it takes me over a year for me to be convinced that, okay, I want to put my money in this market. I mean, this particular company. So the real investment you actually make in the real sense is actually the investment in time. That is the time you spend educating yourself. You see, the last thing you do in that order is now putting your money now into the market. But people
Good.
put money first, they now go to read later. But you should study first before you put your money. At least you take care of that education, will take care of so many risks at that point. And then when the euphoria in the market is up there, you know why. When people are, scared, when people are running away from the market, you actually understand. But when you do not understand, you will definitely make a wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're strong in your education, I keep talking about it, even to my own friends. I try as much as possible to put them through. I study computer science, for crying out loud. I never had an accounting class. I just listen when people talk those days, especially my mentor. I mean, when he says something, I would ask question. And then if it's not clear, I will take it to another friend that I know. I mean, I have friends that they don't even invest in the market, but they are genius in their respective field, especially in finance. So I just take it
Mm-hmm.
to them then. Oh, please, what is this? What does it mean? Then I will relate it to the market. I will relate it to the company. So it gives me an inside view into what these market operations look like. So even when the company is not correctly priced, I know that investors are coming to actually appreciate this, company later, which is even one of the ways to actually spot good equities early.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I like the direction this conversation is going because I see so many people, they've been requesting for you to enlighten them about the market. And I'm so much happy that we're using this medium to really uh, pinpoint on the first thing that should be done, education. Like what you said, the last thing anyone coming into the market, the capital market, not just stocks, if you want to go into maybe involve yourself in bonds,
Those
treasury
debt
bills,
instruments, all the debt
yeah,
classes, commercial
you
paper,
want,
you
yes,
just understand it first.
before you put your money.
Yeah,
That's just the bottom line. If you are a Christian, if you read the Bible, they say the conclusion of all things is fear God and keep His commandments. That's everything that the Bible has been talking about. So when it comes to investing, everything that we've been talking about, everything that we've been trying to buttress on is just the last thing you should do should be when you actually withdraw your money from your bank account and
yeah.
you
So you're from
invest it.
point that okay, I've checked all I need to check. I've studied the banking. I mean,
Financials.
I've studied their financials. I've looked at their board management composition. I've looked at the guys on the board of these companies. I've listened to them. I've read a couple of things from them. I see that they have vision. You need to check that. You need to check you need to check corporate governance. I don't put my money in companies that lacks good corporate governance. For instance, these are things you would learn later. I mean, that figures will not do, but experience in the market will teach you. Companies who report their financials late into the market, I don't put my money in such companies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, over the years, I design some level of, I mean, some set of principles to guide me to make my life easier in the market. There are companies I don't touch their financial statement. I mean, for instance, Oando released their Q1. I mean, this was a company. The first time I invested in Oando, I bought Oando at 65 naira years ago. Years ago. And then this company looked promising then. And then the share price went to about 290 naira. But because I already formed in my head that the winners in the market are the people who stay longer. And then
Yeah.
so I stayed. And then the price dropped again, to probably 30. I can't remember now. They did a right issue and then they wanted to raise money to acquire Konoko Philip asset. Go and read about the story for $1.6 billion. But because I was not at the time, I was not financially savvy.
Mm-hmm.
A company that was not worth $1.6 billion or whatever. I mean, that asset to me, I felt was too big for them to acquire. I expected Oando to invest at the time in refineries. I mean, that would have fetched Wando more money today, but they chose to acquire ConocoPhillips with the money they raised. And then oil price fell after that time. Wando was a mess. And then they came back to raise money. The Mumumi, I still bought into the public offer or whatever they did again. I bought their public offer like 3 times. And then I told myself, no, hell, I'm not going to this company again. I mean, so yesterday, some guys reached out to me to analyze, to break Wando down for them. I asked them the first question, that why are you here? There are so many good companies on the NC. That's the truth. To me, they have a bad management. To me, I mean, I won't put my money in any company that has successive negative equity, shareholders' equity. It means that shareholders' money has been eroded in this company, and then people are still putting their money there. I mean, so you can see what knowledge, what financial exposure and knowledge will do to you in the market.
So what you just said now is another thing that people need to understand. The very first guy that we brought on this podcast for interview, we asked him, what are the red flags you look out for in any company before you invest? The first word that came out of his mouth was negative shareholders' equity.
I don't know the guy. I mean,
And when he said that, I was like, wow, that was interesting. Because as a company, you should be growing.
you should grow my
Your,
money for me.
yeah,
Let me tell you, sorry, let me
no
explain this.
worries. Go ahead.
Let
This
me
show is for you. Just go ahead.
Don't worry, let me explain this. You see, equity, let me explain the concept of equity. Now, if I set up a company, I might decide to approach the bank to take a loan.
We know you would want Tope to continue with his investment take. However, this interview was a very long one. It took us over 2 hours to record, and we felt that releasing the entire 2 hour interview will be too long and boring. Hence, we decided to release the first part. Hopefully, next week we'll release the next part of the interview. Until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to another episode of the favorite podcast that brings insight to the Nigerian stock market. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To get more episodes like this, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, as well as on our website. All this information is available in the show note below this episode. Until we bring you another episode your way next week. Bye for now. TNI Podcast is executive produced by Mudi. This episode was edited by Rona at Rock Quarry Village Studio.